Hi, this is Torin Talks, and today you are watching Epic History Star Wars Part 2. Now we're getting into prequel territory. The story itself takes place about 32 years before the events of Star Wars Episode 4, which is about 32 years before the Battle of Yavin. During this time, the Jedi are in full swing in their roles as ambassadors and protectors of the Republic. The Sith are thought to be extinct at this point. So the major conflict of Episode 1 involves the blockade of Naboo by the Trade Federation. So the blockade was just merely a front for the invasion of Naboo. They were going to invade Naboo anyway, and they just needed like a legal reason to do it. Like, you know, when you really want to go in a country and get something else and you need a reason, it's kind of like that. So the Republic sends 2 Jedi Knights, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi, to try to go in and negotiate a peace between the people of Naboo and Trade Federation because, you know, talks have just broken down. So the Trade Federation is being coached by Lord Sidious, who is revealed to be a Dark Lord of the Sith, along with his apprentice Darth Maul. During the invasion, they want to go down to Naboo and capture the Queen so they can make her sign, you know, whatever they need her to sign to make it legal and basically just take over. So the Jedi get down to the planet to rescue the Queen. However, her ship is damaged in their escape and they are forced to land on a distant planet in the galaxy called Tatooine. On Tatooine, the Jedi and Queen Amidala are aided by a young boy who is shown to be extremely force sensitive. And you know from our first video that force sensitive means that you are highly skilled in the Force. And this boy's name is Anakin Skywalker. They get going on their mission to Coruscant to have Amidala a chance to appeal to the Senate in order to save the people of Naboo. The Senate really doesn't believe her, which calls her to have a vote of no confidence in the Chancellor, and Senator Palpatine, also from Naboo, is elected as the new one. Amidala decides to return home to deal with the threat. Meanwhile, Anakin is taken to the Jedi Temple, but since the Jedi's Council looked into his future is dangerous and very clouded, and more pressing matters are going down, they shelve the Anakin subject and say that he won't be trained. Back down on Naboo, Amidala's plan is going well and good until Darth Maul, the apprentice of Lord Sidious, arrives to take care of the Jedi. While that battle's going on, Amidala and her crew manage to capture the Viceroy of the Trade Federation, and Anakin manages to blow up the droid control tower, and so all the droids are, you know, they're not working anymore. So basically it's a victory for the good guys, except on one front, because Darth Maul kills Qui-Gon Jinn, but Obi-Wan kills him. But they do lose Qui-Gon, and he asks for his last wish. He asks Obi-Wan to train Anakin as a Jedi, and Obi-Wan agrees to train Anakin.
What will happen to me now?
Council have granted me permission to train you. You will be a Jedi. I promise.
There are a lot of explanations offered to us about Star Wars and the mythos by Episode 1, and it explains a lot of origins of some beloved characters. You see Obi-Wan Kenobi as an apprentice, young apprentice, when we only known him as an old Jedi Master. You also see R2-D2 is Amidala's droid, and originally C-3PO is created by Anakin himself. So you kind of see the origin of a lot of familiar characters, including Anakin Skywalker, of course. Episode 1 also explains the Chosen One prophecy.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy?
And that is, Qui-Gon believed that Anakin was the Chosen One who was supposed to bring balance to the Force and destroy the Sith. And that's why he was kind of like ride or die for this kid, because he really thought that he was the Chosen One. Episode 1 also laid down a few key things that would run throughout the rest of the prequels. And the first one being the Sith re-emergence.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
I do not believe the Sith could have returned without us knowing.
Hard to see the dark side is.
Episode 1 proved that the Sith were not extinct like the Jedi thought that they were. They're also stronger than the Jedi thought they were because they were not able to foresee this impending threat of the Sith and all the chaos that they were about to cause. And the reason why they weren't able to see this because the Jedi Temple on Coruscant is actually built on top of an old Sith temple. And so the dark side of the Force kind of is faintly emanating through the building. So they really aren't as powerful as they could be. The Senate is another thing that is established in episode 1 that has consequences throughout the prequels. The Senate is very corrupt. It's comprised of like representatives from each planet, along with the Supreme Chancellor as the leader. However, the Chancellor really answered to the Senate, and he didn't have like total control, which was evident when Amidala went to him for help, and he really couldn't do anything. The large planetary corporations, such as the Trade Federation, also felt shafted by the Senate because they were not able to get the independent jurisdiction that they needed, like the blockade, to protect their business interests. To a few, the Jedi were just as culpable as the Senate to the corruption that has been going on. The Jedi were a highly powerful, almost military-like organization with basically agents deployed all throughout the galaxy, with no real checks or limits on their power. Like, they're not really controlled by the Senate, so they really can't tell the Jedi what they can and can't, do necessarily. Young, Force-sensitive children, such as Anakin Skywalker, are found. They're kind of like taken away from their families and brought up as a Jedi, and some felt the Jedi did this as a way to keep sustaining their power. I want to address one big misconception in episode 1, and that is midichlorians. A lot of people were very upset about the inclusion of midichlorians to explain the Force because they thought it was just supposed to be supernatural and not science. Basically, to explain midichlorians, the midichlorians is what feeds into the cosmic force, and they form the life cells of every being. Midichlorians is like the gauge of force sensitivity in a being. So episode 2 is set about 10 years after the events of episode 1. At this point, the galaxy is on the edge of civil war. Star systems have threatened to leave the Republic. Some have already left. Everyone's just fed up with all the corruption of the Senate, and these planets kind of just break away into their own separatist movement. The movement is being led by a former Jedi called Count Dooku. Senator Padme Amidala, the former Queen of Naboo, has an attempt on her life made, and she is taken under the protection of now Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and his apprentice Anakin Skywalker. Anakin is sent with Padme as her protector back to Naboo while Obi-Wan investigates who's behind the assassination attempts. Obi-Wan's investigation leads him to Kamino, a way-out planet that specializes in cloning. He is shocked to learn that an order for a clone army for the Republic was put in place over a decade ago. Clone troopers are like the first wave of troopers that the galaxy really sees. They are clones from a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, and they are also genetically modified to be more resilient, and a little bit of their independence is removed to make them less willful and ability to follow orders. Clone troopers are basically the predecessor to stormtroopers, who are made up of human recruits versus clones. Jango also has an unaltered clone of his own named Boba Fett. Boba Fett will go on to be one of the most popular characters in the entire Star Wars series with the shortest amount of screen time. Jango wore Mandalorian armor, and depending on the canon at the time, it changes. So he's either a Mandalorian or a pretender that took the armor. Depending on the day of the week it is, you never know. Anakin also has Force visions about his mother being in severe pain, so he and Padme decide to go back to Tatooine to help her. Unfortunately, he is too late to save her, and she dies in his arms. This incident will have a lasting impact on Anakin and shape his decision-making in the future. The Jedi devise a plan for Master Mace Windu to take the few Jedi they have to go rescue Obi-Wan, Padme, and Anakin, who were all captured on Geonosis. A big battle breaks out once the Jedi arrive between the Separatist droid army, the Jedi, and the clone army. Jango Fett is killed in the battle, which bums out little baby Boba, and Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Yoda face down Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus, Lord Sidious's new apprentice. Anakin loses a limb in the fight and Dooku escapes with secret weapon plans. The battle on Geonosis has begun the Clone Wars, and after confessing their love for one another during their capture, Padme and Anakin are secretly married back on Naboo. A couple of things happen here in episode 2 that set the stage for episode 3, and I'm gonna talk about those. The first one is Anakin's wavering in the Jedi Code. In this movie, we see many hints of Anakin's eventual selfishness is one of those things. He wants Obi-Wan in the movie to give him all these props. He needs to be recognized for the awesome person and awesome Jedi that he is. And Obi-Wan's not getting with the fucking program. There's also a selfish nature in his pursuit of Padme, where he's in love with her and he's determined to get her, everything else be damned. He's the one that also suggests that they should have a secret relationship, which is not only selfish, but very deceptive, which is another thing that is not really lining up with the Jedi Order. And though the Jedi Code at this point forbids marriage, he marries her at the end of episode 2. So he's already violating all kind of rules. Another departure from the Jedi way of things is when Anakin goes back to Tatooine to find his mother. It is the fear for her safety that led him to go there, because he was having these dreams, these forced visions in his sleep about his mother. He also became very angry at her death and abduction by the Sand People, as he ended up just slaughtering innocents, even the women and children of the Sand People who kind of probably had nothing to do with it. He also said he hated the Sand People, and hate is an emotion that very much leads you to the dark side of the Force. From Anakin in this episode, we have seen hate, fear, anger, aggression, deception, and betrayal. All the ideas that are complete opposite of Jedi belief and are definitely in line with the Sith way of things. The slaughtering of innocents is also showing that Anakin is starting to lose his humanity. This is highlighted at the end of episode 2 when his limb is cut off by Dooku. So in this movie, he literally and figuratively loses a piece of his humanity. It's also shown that Anakin has been under the teaching and influence of Chancellor Palpatine for quite some time. Palpatine and Obi-Wan both serve in this instance as father figures at this point in Anakin's life. Whereas Obi-Wan is kind of like that stern parent that doesn't let you have candy for dinner because they know you're going to have an upset stomach. Palpatine is the parent that indulges all of Anakin's whims, wishes, tantrums, and more importantly, his ego that is getting bigger by the day. He's feeding into this inflated sense of self that Anakin has in episode 2. The rise of the Empire also begins very subtly and quietly in episode 2. With all these star systems that are threatening the Republic, it allows for the creation of a militarized force, the clone troopers, being controlled by Palpatine. We also see the plans for the creation of the Death Star, which is the most devastating weapon of the Empire. So the Jedi become increasingly aware that their ability to read the Force and predict things with the Force is severely, severely clouded.
Blind we are with creation of this clone army we could not see.
Also the fact that they couldn't detect the presence of the Sith in the Senate itself. This blindness, coupled with the struggles that Anakin are dealing with the principles of the Jedi Order, are the main basis of the plot of episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Alrighty, so now we're on to episode 3, and episode 3 is about 3 years since the events of episode 2. The Republic and the Separatists are now in battle in a full-on war. In a lot of ways, this new character, General Grievous, is a predecessor for the tech that created Darth Vader. He's a hybrid between machine and organic life form. So he is the first kind of being that takes on that role before Darth Vader. Anakin brutally executes Dooku in a way which is not of the Jedi Order at all. Later, Padme tells Anakin that she's pregnant, which further complicates their secret marriage. He later has a vision of her dying in childbirth, which definitely shakes him to his core, seeing as how his mother died after the last vision he had, and he is determined not to let Padme share the same fate. The Chancellor, who basically has total control in the Senate right now, orders the Jedi to let him appoint someone to be his representative on the Jedi Council, and he chooses Anakin. And the Council is just as distrusting of Palpatine. They don't really trust him. And so they agree to his demand because they want to see what happens. But they do not grant Anakin the rank of Master. If you remember in part 1, I said that the Council, everyone that is on the Jedi Council, has to have achieved the rank of Master, and then there is a Grand Master.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of Master.
What? How can you do this? How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Young Skywalker.
He didn't even see what an honor it was to be that young and be on the council. He just was pissed because he didn't get the accolade, the rank of master that he felt like he should be bestowed on him because he is on the damn council. The Jedi asked him to spy on the Chancellor for the Jedi Order. So this kind of conflicts him even further. He was already conflicted because his loyalties to the Jedi, then his loyalties to Padme now, and his loyalties to Palpatine. Now this is conflicting him in his mind even further because the Jedi are asking him to do things that he feels is dishonest and, he's uncomfortable with doing. They ask these things of him, yet they don't respect him enough to make him a Jedi Master. So this furthers the conflict that is already raging within Anakin at this point. To him that good and evil are not ideologies, that they are just matters of perspective, and that the Jedi and Sith are almost the same in every way, including their need and want for more power. After the death of General Grievous, the war is all but over, so the Jedi go back to the Senate to make sure that Chancellor Palpatine gives up all of his emergency powers. Instead, they discover that Palpatine is the Dark Lord of the Sith that they've been looking for the entire time. After confronting Palpatine, Mace Windu is killed due to interference by Anakin, who turns to the dark side of the Force, and now he is rechristened Darth Vader. This turn from the dark side comes from being disillusioned with the Jedi Order and wanting to save Padme because Palpatine tells him the dark side has unnatural abilities, such as the ability to stop people from dying. Lord Sidious then declares that all Jedis are now the enemies of the Republic, and he executes Order 66 through the clone troopers. So they kill most of the Jedi in the galaxy, save for a few that went into hiding or escaped their would-be assassin. Anakin led a raid on the Jedi Temple and killed all the Jedi who were there, including the younglings. Yoda and Obi-Wan escaped their assassination attempts and face off between Lord Sidious and Anakin. Yoda goes into exile after his duel with Palpatine, and after being force choked by Vader, Padme, who is dying at this point, is taken to Polymassa, where she is giving birth to Luke and Leia, the twins. And this scene is juxtaposed really kind of poetically with the birth of Darth Vader. You see Anakin getting the artificial limbs and the black suit and the iconic mask that he is known for and the breathing apparatus. So he has fully completed his transformation into Darth Vader. To protect the children from the threat of the Emperor, they are separated. Leia is taken to Alderaan and raised by Bail Organa and his wife. Meanwhile, Luke is taken to Tatooine and he is raised by his uncle and aunt. So once Darth Vader hears that Padme is dead, that is basically the last shred of humanity anyone's going to see out of him for quite some time.